So my name is Emily Eichholzer. I'm a project manager of collection and pumping for the Sanitary division at the City of Naperville. All my emails on there. If you guys have any questions after this, please feel free to email me. I've been doing this kind of stuff for about 3.5 years, so I'm by no means an industry expert, but I do have a lot of resources at work. So if I can't answer a question, I definitely have someone that can. All right, so just a little bit of background. The City of Naperville has about 150,000 customers that we serve. So we have about 500 miles of sewer main and about 12,000 manholes. We do a lot of in-house operation and maintenance to maintain these assets, and we also do quite a bit of contracting work as well. So we do CCTV inspections. We're actually looking into running those inspections through an AI program. We're kind of running low on staff to be able to review our CCTV videos and grade those and things like that. We do smoke testing. We have flow meters in our system. We do main, lateral, and manhole grouting, small and large diameter lining, lateral lining, and manhole rehab. We do all of these in efforts to keep I&I out of our system. I&I is active infiltration, either from inflow or infiltration. And the main goal of keeping this out of the system is so we're not treating clean rainwater at our wastewater treatment plant. And then we also want to extend the lifespan of our assets as well. So there's quite a few things that go into a successful manhole rehab project. We're going to go over a few of these things, but the overall theme at Naperville that we like to apply to all of our projects is lessons learned. Throughout every project, we have weekly meetings to discuss things that we're finding, things we want to change for next year, and just overall discussions on how the product is working. So the reason we do these inspections in-house and so thoroughly is to truly try and get that 50-year life expectancy that most of these companies and contractors are advertising that the products will last for. So we really want to make sure that they are following the specs and standards that, you know, they give us their specs and standards, and we just want to make sure that we become familiar with those and that they're following them. We also want to ensure that we're getting what we paid for. We've put a lot of money into our rehab efforts, so we want to make sure that, the contractors are following bid, not cutting any corners, and that's why, you know, we stay out there with them the entire time. And if there is a failed rehab, hopefully the inspector can catch the reason why. A lot of times the manhole rehab fails due to prep work. So while as inspectors, we can't necessarily tell the contractor, you know, hey, you can't spray that yet. The prep work is not, it's not good enough. We can make a note of it in our asset management system so that if it does fail down the road, we at least have a note of why that rehab may have failed. And that kind of just mitigates back and forth conversations between ourselves as an owner and the contractor themselves. And then lastly, it's just to find potential issues. And it saves everybody money. I'll show you guys an example of something like that that happened, but it's just better for everyone, especially in the beginning of the project, to have our standards and expectations right out on the table. It helps everybody. Okay, so all of the inspectors at the City of Naperville that perform these inspections are NASCO certified. Is anyone in here NASCO certified or ever heard of NASCO? Got one, two? So NASCO is basically a set of standards in the sewer industry for inspecting and doing rehab processes. So there's a lateral asset program, a pipeline assessment, and manhole assessment, and then we also have inspector training. So a couple of us are also trained in inspecting manhole and CIP lining projects. We've all also been to grout school. We're all confined space certified, and we all have had flagger and traffic training as well. So a big part of a successful manhole rehab project is bid review. Again, this has been happening for years, so the current bid we have, of course, you know, I can't take credit for that. It's been years and years of adjustments and discussions and attending seminars and things like that to get best practices out of each product. So it's very important to obtain the product's material SDS sheet and the product data sheet. This is where we get to know the product, the hazards that it may present to the inspector itself, the public, the workers, how it should be stored and how it should be handled. We also require all contractors to submit a traffic control plan. This is kind of a way for us to kind of cover ourselves in case there is an accident. We can say, you know, hey, they had a traffic control plan. They should have been following it. It's also a way for us to tell the contractor. So for example, as an inspector, we can't say, hey, you need to put that cone outside of your truck, you know, on the road, because if something happens to that worker while they're putting that cone out, it's on us as a city. But we can hold them accountable to their own safety plan and their own traffic control plan. So we can say, hey, you know, are you following your traffic control plan? I don't see any cones out, that kind of thing. We also, in talks during our pre-cons and stuff, we will talk about bypass pumping. We do have a line item in each contract for bypass pumping. It's not always used, but it is important to have a written plan. This ensures that we have a plan for closing sidewalks, streets. We'll have our supervisors in there kind of helping out to give them guidance on where the suction manhole should be and where the discharge manhole should be. And also it ensures that the contractor is prepared for any fuel leaks from the generators or any issues with their hoses. So we are huge on safety as a city. We do receive the contractor safety policy plan, so we can hold them to that. And we also have some items in our bid about safety. So some of the big ones I just wanted to highlight is that at no time shall any manhole be left open or unattended. And we also ask that the contractors obtain sufficient barriers around their project area to ensure that the public doesn't enter our work zone where we're working. We also require that the contractor evaluate the atmosphere through gas testing before they begin working. They have to submit their safety data sheets. And on the right, you'll see one of the contractors that submitted their safety policy plan, so we can kind of hold them to their own plan if we see them doing something maybe dangerous. All right, these are our inspection forms that we fill out during the manhole rehab project. On the left, you'll see a daily form. The contractor fills this out. There's a section for cleaning and prep work, grouting, the actual manhole spraying, and then testing, which we'll go over shortly. On the right is a sheet that's filled out for every manhole. You'll see that there's adhesion test results on there. We take the temperature of the time that the manhole was sprayed, who was the applicator, where's the manhole located, the depth of the manhole, and just some notes of anything that may happen throughout the project. So this is where I mentioned that it's so important to get familiar with the materials that the contractor is going to be using, and that you're inspecting those materials and that equipment when they arrive on site to actually complete the job. So here you'll see this is a product called Spray Wall. It's 2 drums and they mix in a spray gun as they're being sprayed. I went to go check the barrels and they were the wrong product. They had no idea where they came from, how they got there. So this is kind of one of those things where we saved them a lot of money because as opposed to maybe you don't have an inspector out there at all times, your process may be, oh, you guys, the contractor, you spray 5 manholes, then I'll come and check them out later on in the week. We were able to kind of stop that, nip it in the bud. They didn't even spray anything, so that was great. They just continued their prep work for the rest of that week, and they brought the correct materials the following week. So this is just a couple photos of the manhole prep work. You can see on the top left, they're just removing the steps. We have a line item in our contract to make sure that those steps are cut flush to the manhole wall, so they're required to actually saw them off and not just knock them out with a hammer. And on the top right, you'll see that they're spraying a mortar where they have a mortar rig. That just fills any fine cracks, and typically that will stop most leaks in the manhole. You cannot spray a product while the manhole is wet or has an active leak, so they have to stop all of the infiltration before they can move forward with the actual rehabilitation process. There is a completed manhole, a brick manhole on the left. The manhole on the right is sprayed with Raven 405. So we have a couple inspection procedures that we use. Depending on the product, it really depends on the product that we're going to be using. So you'll see the wet film thickness test. So all of the products are required to be sprayed 250 mils or a quarter of an inch thick. Because of the certain products, you can't necessarily do a wet film thickness test on all of the products. So Raven 405 is actually really the only one that's worth doing the wet film thickness test. So as an inspector, we will perform that test ourselves, and then also throughout the spray, the Raven 405 applicator will push that gauge into the wall throughout the process to ensure that he's getting his proper thickness over the whole structure. The reason we can't do a wet film thickness test on spray rock product or spray wall is because it just dries too quickly. It's an epoxy coating, so there's just really no way to test the thickness, which is kind of a limitation of the product. But we'll get to that in a moment. And then on the pink stuff right over there is called Spectra Shield. That product has a foam barrier in between two layers of polyurea, so it's always gonna hit that quarter of an inch thickness because that foam, it just grows so much. And then we also do adhesion testing on 10% of every manhole. So adhesion testing is when the contractor will glue, you'll see in that middle picture on the bottom left, they'll glue that metal dolly onto the side of the product. After it's completed spraying, they'll let it cure overnight. They come in with a circle saw and they cut around that dolly, and then they apply that machine in that middle picture. And that machine applies pressure to see how much force did it take to rip that adhesion sample off the wall. Because essentially the product should be adhering to the wall and become one after the spray. But for spray wall, due to the thickness, it is a limitation. It contracts. So you actually don't get adhesion when you use spray wall, which is a limitation. You can see with the micrometer there, we had a sample that didn't hit the 250 mils. So that's the other huge limitation with spray wall, is that we can't test the thickness throughout the project, and we only get to test the thickness now on 10% of the manholes. So that's a huge limitation for us with that product. And then also we spark test every manhole, so or holiday test. It's very common in the paint world as well. Basically, if there's any voids between the product and the wall of the manhole, there'll be a spark and it'll beep, and then that's an obvious way for the contractors to say, like, oh, we need to add some more product here or do a little bit of remedying. We do post-rehab checks, so this year I started actually entering some of the manholes after they were complete for various reasons. We'll just leave it at that. But as you can see, there was an adhesion test completed. That's that circle there. Typically, they apply a product to that to keep, they patch it basically, and that product just fell out of the hole. So I called them back and they had to fix this and remedy it because that could be a source of infiltration. And then on the right, you'll see that's a channel of a sewer manhole. You'll see those kind of brown stainings closer towards me. That's actually infiltration coming in from underneath that liner, in between the liner and the manhole itself. So that's kind of where I was saying that adhesion comes into play. So if it were to adhere, that wouldn't be able to happen. But because this product doesn't adhere, it separates from the manhole. So what they did to remedy this is they drilled holes straight through the liner and injected grout. If you're not familiar with grout, it's basically, it's in a tube typically, sometimes it's in a pump, and typically we use a hydrophilic, and it activates with water. So as soon as it hits water, it kind of grows like a foam, and then that's supposed to keep the water out. It did work. I approved it. I didn't make them cut it out. I figured it did what it was supposed to do, so we'll see how that holds up over time. Lastly, we do warranty inspections. So most of our products, we require there to be a 3-year warranty attached with that. So we enter that warranty date into GIS, and then we can easily query out at the beginning of each year which manhole rehabs are going to be expiring for this year. We'll then send our crews out to check the manholes and then simply just shoot the contractor an email, hey, we found these, they're still under warranty inspection. We'll get you the total lists at the end of the year. And then they're required by contract to come back and fix those. And that is all I've got. If anyone has any questions, I'll be around. Thank you very much.